warmly welcoming you to How Does She Do It, the podcast, with me, your host, Jo Ferroni. Join me on my journey as I explore finding a gentle balance in both business and life, because being kind to ourselves is our superpower. In today's episode, I chat with Caroline Kulik, the founder of Eden Lane Interiors, who shares her fascinating experience of building a thriving business while still maintaining her corporate career. Caroline conveys the pivotal moment when she realised that no one was going to hand her permission to create a different life, and that instead she would have to take control and make that change herself by making a business out of her passion. She describes the reality of managing both worlds as walking a very tight rope with a very fragile balance, offering an honest perspective that moves beyond any superwoman narrative. We explore how Caroline worked on her mindset to navigate the inevitable moments when it all feels too much, including developing a clear sense of purpose for her business and building a support network to lift her up on the days when self-belief wavers. She also shares how the lockdown period became a crucial turning point when she enrolled on an interior design course and discovered the profound impact the subsequent changes had on her family's well-being. There's so much more here too, from Caroline's design philosophy to practical interior design tips and even a gorgeous sensory visualization exercise. So whether you're dreaming of starting your own venture, navigating the balance between security and passion, or simply looking to transform your living space, Caroline's honesty and practical wisdom offer beautiful encouragement for the journey ahead. Enjoy the show. This week's episode is sponsored by Eden Lane Interiors, founded by Caroline Kulik. If you've ever walked into your home at the end of a long day and felt your shoulders tense rather than relax, Caroline is exactly who you need. She's an interior designer who understands that a beautiful home is as much about how it makes you feel as how it looks. Because here's the thing, our nervous systems respond to everything we see, touch, hear and smell, which means the right design choices can have a transformational effect on your well-being. Caroline's approach is refreshingly different, focusing on how you want to feel. So whether that's calm, joyful, cozy, or energized, she'll help you create a home that supports rather than drains you. No trends, no show, just spaces that feel like a true sanctuary. Caroline offers a range of services to suit different needs, from expert home consultations to full design project and renovation support. So if you're ready for a home that actually supports you in 2026, Caroline is offering a free 30-minute discovery call to How Does She Do It listeners. Simply head over to edenlaneinteriors.com to book. Plus, to download her free guide, Wellbeing by Design, 5 sensory shifts for a home that restores you, just head to the show notes. Caroline, welcome to the podcast. We're recording this on a Friday afternoon and I can't think of a better way to end the week. Thank you so much for joining me today. How are you doing?
I'm really good, thank you. And I'm honestly so thrilled to be here with you today. It's such a privilege to be able to be part of your podcast. You and I met in April 2025, I think it was. And from the moment I met you, you were such a ray of sunshine. And I knew that you were somebody that I really wanted to have in my community and in my life. So thank you so much for having me on today.
Oh, you've set me off. Thank you so much. I feel exactly the same. That was a day when I was very much pushing out of my comfort zone, actually, to be a guest speaker and to think that you were there and you heard me and we connected on that day before you had to dash back to work. It was so fleeting and yet so personal that I also knew there was something very special about you, and I'm so delighted and also quite surprised when you said we've only known each other since April. I forget because I feel like I know you and your business so well, and it's just such a privilege for me to be able to witness you on your journey, but also to be speaking with you today to really celebrate all that you are achieving and moving forward with as well. So thank you for coming to be a guest today. We have got loads to talk about, and I think that before we learn about how your journey to design was born, I believe it's really important to share that you are actually currently combining your business, which we're going to talk about more, with a corporate work life too. And I know that that is going to be something that is really relatable for some people, or possibly incredibly inspiring for someone who's thinking about doing similar. Could you tell me how on earth do you do it?
Well, there's really two things that I want to get across as part of this question because, first of all, absolutely, I want to inspire, any woman that is thinking of starting a business, following their passion. I absolutely want to inspire them. And if my journey and my words can help to do that, then that's absolutely fantastic. Equally, I don't want to sell the idea that this has been smooth sailing, that it has been easy, or that I am behaving like some kind of superwoman. I am not part of any 5 a.m. club. I do not rise at 5 a.m. to start the job, etc. So I want to try and, I guess, get both sides of the story across. But yes, you're absolutely right. I am building Eden Lane Interiors alongside a demanding corporate job, as well as being a mum and a wife, a dog mum. So there is a lot going on. And if I'm honest, I probably resisted the urge to follow my passion for so long because I don't think I could figure out in my head how I would make it all happen. But I got to a stage where I felt quite stuck in my job, if I'm honest, in my corporate job. I've been working for the same company for 16 years across a different, number of roles and functions. So I've had quite a broad experience, but I've got to the stage where I just couldn't really see what was next. And I realized that no one was coming. No one was coming to hand me a different life. No one was coming to give me permission to do something differently. No one was coming to tell me it was okay for my life to look different to what it had looked like for the past 16 years. And so I had to put my big girl pants on and say, something has to change. And starting the business was not a decision that I made lightly because obviously it has an impact on, the amount of time that I have at home that I can dedicate to family time, to friends, to hobbies, etc. But it was something that I felt such a big need to do. So how do I do it? It is a juggling act. Most days I feel like I am walking a very tight rope and the balance is very, very fragile. But I would say the biggest shifts for me have been working on my mindset, definitely working on my mindset, which is something that I've spent a lot of time doing with my amazing business coach and mentor, who you know as well, Lisa Marie El Khadraoui from Design Boss Diary. Having that cheerleader in your corner to support you is just incredible. So working a lot on my mindset to feel ready to take on the challenges that come day in, day out has made a big difference. Getting really clear on the purpose behind the business has also been an essential part of the journey because on the really crappy days when you wake up and you go, I can't do this. I don't even know what I'm doing. Why am I doing this to myself? Being able to go back to your purpose and go, actually, this is why I'm getting up. This is why I am doing this today. That is just the core, isn't it, of being able to run the business successfully. And then there are lots of practical things in place, support that I have at home, an incredibly supportive husband who is literally my rock. He has an unwavering belief in me. Even on the days where I don't have it for myself, he never doubts it. And putting that kind of support network in place. And on a practical level, I only take on the number of design projects that I know that I can deliver on. I don't overload myself, because the last thing I want to do is disappoint a client when they are trusting me with probably the most valuable asset they have, which is their home. So a blend of all these things means that I am somehow making it work, but it is a fragile balance and it's definitely not easy.
That was that was almost poetic, the way you shared that. And I feel it has given my listener a really clear picture of you and all that you're doing. And when you talked about the tightrope you're walking and that fragile balance, it also shows that, I believe, and I guess this ties in with the mindset work you've done, but to me, you come across incredibly self-aware as well. And I think that to be self-aware, to notice when things perhaps do feel a bit off or maybe a bit much, or that you are having days when you doubt yourself, it's really so valuable to be able to recognize that and sit with it. And like you say, you've got an incredibly supportive husband who is believing in you even when you have those dips, if you like, in belief. And I'm very lucky that I have the same with my husband as well. And sometimes we just need to vent and to explain that this is hard. This is really hard. And it's with their support that we do take that next step forward, and we don't just kind of curl up in a corner rocking going, I can't do this anymore. So hooray for the support. And obviously, as you shared, your support network is not just your husband. It is, you have built a support network around you professionally as well, which I just think is invaluable. And I've known you before you started working with Lisa and since, and I'm seeing I'm seeing the effects of that. And I know how passionate you are about your working relationship with Lisa, and it really does feel like a match made in heaven. So well done, you. I think it's absolutely fascinating that so many women start a business that began as a personal need of their own. Would you be able to explain how your personal need then became a hobby and then went on to become this aha moment when you were reading your pension statement? Because I think it is fascinating. So take us back to that personal need to begin with.
Yes, so I'm going to take you back to 2021, January 2021, which I think is a time many of us will remember, because we had just gone back into lockdown for the second time during the pandemic. And we had recently moved into our new home, the home that I live in today. And we felt incredibly lucky to be in this new home, to have access to a garden, to have a little bit more space, to have a home office, which is something that we didn't have before. But during this period of time as well, my anxiety absolutely went through the roof. And anxiety is something that, I have struggled with in the past, but I had gotten pretty good at managing it. And then that January, it was just all over the place. I had shortness of breath, I had all these panicky feelings. I wasn't sleeping. I felt really restless and agitated. And of course, some of that had to do with being in lockdown and some of what we were seeing on the news cycle and everything. But actually, I realized that a lot of what was happening around me in the house was just grating on me. It was like that extra little bit of irritation. So when you're really exhausted and really tired, mess and clutter isn't just annoying, it can actually bring you to tears. When you are, not sleeping, the fact that every room in the house feels like a mess and the colours are off and the lighting is off, it's not just a niggle, it can really deplete you and reduce your energy. So I just realized at that point that I needed to do something different in the house. It didn't feel like us. It didn't feel like a cozy, warm, and comfortable home. And of course, this was a time of our lives where we were spending so much time at home. We were stuck at home. So when I realized that the house wasn't working for us, I knew that I had to do something different. And so that January, I signed up for an interior design course. And it was something that, I was doing in the evenings. It was a virtual course. And it was such a breath of fresh air, something that was really positive and energizing at a time where there wasn't a lot of positivity out in the world. And it was something that I wanted to do for myself. And as I started to decorate the house, and I started to introduce some of the colors that I loved and some cozy and comfortable textures. And as I started to reintroduce some natural materials, I just started to feel completely different. And the home started to feel more like us. It started to feel more welcoming. It had more personality because I added, some lovely vintage items, some personal items, things that had real meaning to us. And suddenly it wasn't just a nice house, it became a real home. And I noticed such a positive impact on my mental well-being. It was really startling, actually.
I think it's really important that you share that. When I say that, there are a few things you shared there that I think are really important. First of all, that your home hasn't always been as it is now, and you haven't always had these talents or this ability to know what can really benefit you and your well-being. And I just think it's worth highlighting that because it can be very easy, I think, for someone to look at a professional like yourself and go, well, it's all right for her. She's got the perfect home. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think that you sharing that story will be incredibly enlightening for people, actually, especially people that perhaps are feeling that grating feeling that you mentioned and that niggle every now and then, whether it's about clutter, whether it's just about a space in their house that just doesn't feel warm and inviting and cozy and
Yeah.
attractive to them. So thank you for sharing that part of your journey. I think it is incredibly important for people to hear. And so let's go back to that interior design course that you did and the changes that you started making, and then the changes you started recognizing in yourself as well. What came next?
So, as I was still going through the interior design course, I actually started an Instagram account, an interiors account. This was just a bit of a passion project. I was sharing some of my journey, redecorating the house. I was sharing some hints and tips for other homeowners, etc. And it was something, it was a bit of a challenge to myself. I was absolutely terrified to do it, to show myself on camera and film these reels and take these photographs and things like that. So it was a bit of a way to challenge myself and get myself out of my comfort zone. And I did that really consistently and really seriously for about a year. And then, to be completely honest with you, I parked interiors. I parked interiors probably for 18 months to 2 years, not in terms of my personal development and my personal learning. I was still reading the magazines. I then went on to do a couple of other courses because I was continuing to decorate my own home and I wanted to continue learning. But in terms of it becoming anything more than just a hobby, I just put it on the back burner. My corporate job was really busy. And to be honest, at that point, there were a few people in my life as well that were saying to me, look, this is just a distraction. This is taking you away from the career that you have worked so hard to build. And you just need to get serious about that and get yourself back on track. And so for a period of time, I did put it on the back burner and I did put all of my energy and my time into my corporate job. And as part of that, I got the opportunity to work on some really exciting things. But the reality is the passion wasn't there, the fire wasn't there. And it was December of 2024, and I was having to fill out a couple of bits of paperwork for my pension scheme. And the default retirement age on our pension scheme is 68. And I thought, oh my goodness, I've still got 30 years of this ahead of me. And that was a really scary realization, really scary realization. And I thought, this isn't what I want to do for the next 30 years. I want to do something that makes me really excited, that makes me wake up in the morning and think, yes, I can't wait to get started. Something that, connects me to other people in a more meaningful way, something that makes me feel fizzy. I want to feel fizzy. And so at that moment, I realized that this real passion that I had, and actually the skill that I'd started to develop in interiors, was something that I just needed to go back to. It was time, enough of making excuses, enough of putting it in the background, enough of telling myself, next year I'll change something, next year I'll do something, next year I'll start the life that I want to live. Enough. Now is the time. If not now, then when? I think 40 is approaching terribly fast. If I want to make a change, then it's make it happen.
Can I also add to your enough list, enough of looking externally or listening externally to what others might feel is, in inverted commas, the right thing for you, as you spoke to just now. That is such a big, bold, wise decision, and how wonderful really that you had to be doing that paperwork and you had a bit of a mic drop moment thinking, I'm not sure about this for another 30 years. I just think that's incredible that you had that as the impetus, I guess, to really think, hang on a minute, I need to do more.
Yes, absolutely. And that was the moment where the decision to go from a passion and a hobby to a business, it happened in that moment. Then came a few months of, oh, but actually I don't have permission to do this. I don't have permission to do this, from the people around me. I don't have permission to do this in terms of, I don't have a diploma, I don't have a degree, I am not a design expert. That stopped me for a really long time. The imposter syndrome stopped me for a really, really long time, because I felt like I needed it. I needed a piece of paper to say, there is some other entity out there that says you are good at design and you have the permission to do this. And, again, that was part of the journey of working with Lisa to say, the piece of paper isn't going to change anything at this point in the game. You have the skills, you have the knowledge, you have taught yourself so much. You have made some of the mistakes yourself. You have learned so much on the ground. And actually, it is something that I have a real affinity with. I understand colors and how they work together. I understand proportions. I see things that are pleasing to the eye and things that are not. I see things that work together, that when you layer them together, it creates that beautiful look of a home that has been, collected over time, designed and created over time. So it tapped into a real inner creativity that I have, but had never really had the chance to fully explore.
Wonderful. Absolutely wonderful. I very much hear you on that permission that you almost were seeking in order to be able to take that brave step. And I'm so glad that you found your answers. I would really love for you to share about your design approach and philosophy. And I love that you believe that home should be a sanctuary. And you've already alluded to this a little bit already, but yeah, can you tell us a little bit about your design approach and philosophy?
Yeah, of course. As we talked about earlier, for me, it came from that very personal need of calming down my anxiety, creating that sanctuary where I can be myself, I can feel calm, I can feel at peace. And that can be challenging, in a busy family home. Creating that real feeling of sanctuary sometimes has its challenges. But if I go back to the very early stages of that interior design course that I did, I had to pick a room in the house that I wanted to design, and that kind of created the backbone, if you like, for the course. And so I picked our front room, which is actually the room I'm sitting in now as we're talking. And it had been such a dumping ground, Joe. I mean, honestly, it had everything from cardboard boxes that had never been unpacked to toys. It had umbrellas. It had, I mean, just you name it, it was in this room. And I cleared everything out and I sat on the floor with a piece of paper and a pen. And I asked myself, well, how do I want to feel in here? This room has been making me feel really anxious, really stressed out. It's the kind of room that I just walked past and I shut the door because I thought I don't want to see what's inside. So once it was all clear, it was all empty, there was nothing left in it. I physically sat on the floor with pen and paper and just started to jot down some words about how I wanted it to feel. And that is now the starting point for every design project that I have with my clients. Before we talk about paint colors, before we talk about design style, before I allow a client to even show me their dream sofa, we start with how do you want to feel in this space? And that then kind of becomes the blueprint, if you like, for the entire project. Because usually this is something that clients can answer really easily, right? I don't expect my clients to be able to describe a particular design style or design era that they want to reflect in their home. That's not their job. That's my job to then help them do that. But what most people can express is how they want to feel in a room, a space in their home. And then I act essentially as their sat nav to take them from where you are today to where you want to go. I am the one that will keep you on track. That if you've said you want a room to feel really cozy and warm and welcoming and soft, and then you say to me, oh, yeah, I was in the shop the other day and I spotted this really glamorous looking crystal chandelier. I'm going to bring you back to the vision and say, that's beautiful, that's stunning, but that doesn't fit with the vision, what you've told me you wanted this room to feel like. And that is a lot of what I do throughout a project with a client is just bring it back to this is the vision, this is what you wanted to achieve. So that's where I start. I start with the feeling because if you get the feeling right, your home will impact how you feel in a positive way every single day.
It's just incredible. It makes me I had my eyes closed for some of that because I was just imagining that process that you go through so gently, so intuitively with your clients. And the word nurturing came up as well whilst you were speaking for me. I love that you used that analogy of being their sat nav as well, but in such a nurturing way. Now, you already alluded to this a little bit when you were talking about when you were in your front room and it wasn't necessarily bringing you the joy that you hoped it might. That, for me, is a great thing for my listener to hear, for me to hear as well, because it just shows that, you're real, you're human, like the rest of us. And yet you can make positive changes. So one thing that I think could be a bit of a blocker for some people is that they do feel they've got a packed household in terms of, number of people in it, lots going on, comings and goings. Maybe they've got children, a dog, any pets, teenagers as well. It can be very easy for people who haven't heard what you've shared so far to kind of think, oh gosh, well, I'm never going to be in that position. So can you reassure that person that they could absolutely be your client?
Absolutely. I mean, look, there's different things within that question. The first one is that I am also a mum. I also have a dog. In fact, I have a large golden retriever who loves the mud. So I understand, the day-to-day chaos of a family home and family life. And there is beauty in that chaos. And it is not about getting rid of the chaos, it is about how we can manage it better. So the second stage when I work with clients usually is after we've talked about the feeling, then I take it right back to the practicalities of the home. Because for me, a beautiful home, a well designed home, is a well functioning home. So I will look at things like what storage and systems have you got in place? If the hallway is covered in pairs of shoes, what can we come up with so that your morning routine is that little bit easier because everyone can find their shoes. And when everyone comes home in the evening, everyone can put their shoes in a certain place. If I look at a kitchen, and I see that you haven't got enough storage, or you haven't got in a living room, you haven't got ways that you can very quickly tidy up. You know, I recommend baskets to all my clients. Get yourself lots of storage baskets. You've got some really pretty ones that look really beautiful scattered around the room. But then if you've got people or guests coming over, you can literally scoop things up and dump them in the baskets. Yeah,
I
it is
love that.
not about having those perfectly curated cupboards where when you open them up, everything is labeled and in perfect jars and tins and boxes and things like that. My home doesn't look like that. And I don't think many people's homes do look like that, nor do they want them to look like that. So it is not about perfection. I never design for perfection. I never design for show. I design for everyday life, but in a way that also looks after your well-being. In my design approach, yes, we've talked about the softness and the nurturing, and absolutely that is there because ultimately I have such a strong belief that a home, that is designed with feeling at its heart will make you feel better and will nurture your well-being. But what I also bring with me from my corporate career is those 16 years of project management, budget management, problem solving, coordinating lots of different people behind one single vision. So when I need to get your architect, your builder, your plumber, and your electrician on the same page, that is something that I can do very seamlessly because I've done it, a million times. Although in my corporate job, it's not an architect and it's not a builder, it's different players, but the principles are exactly the same. So, along with the softness and the nurturing comes a really, really strong background of essential skills to running an interior design business. Because the reality is, the actual design part is probably about 30% of what I do. The other 70% is taking some of the mental load away from my clients, managing the project for them, ordering for them, chasing orders for them, returning orders when it arrives broken or they've sent the wrong one. All of that mental load that takes up a lot of time that a busy family doesn't necessarily have. They're all things that I can help with as well.
So much behind the scenes that, you just don't necessarily think about as, as a potential client. And I think that your background is so, who knew? Your background is so highly relevant for what you do and just complements the interior design side of things incredibly well. Something that really stands out to me, Caroline, and I hope you don't mind me saying, is that you have the most calming presence, voice, intention, everything about you is just so very beautifully calm. And I just think it's almost like all of the corporate experience and expertise that you naturally have because you work so hard over 16 years in the corporate space just lends itself so beautifully. And I see it almost as, I'm trying to think how to describe this. It's almost like a magic bullet that, we're unaware of, but that's there as well. And I think that must really set you apart from a lot of other people in your industry. It's a really glorious combination that you bring. Now, another thing I would love for you to share is some tips, if you don't mind, because I feel that people will have had their interest piqued by hearing from you today. And in this modern world, we get something in our head and we're like, oh, I want to do something now. I'd love to make a change now. And obviously they can't completely change their house now. But would you mind sharing 3 tips with my listeners?
Of course. And do you know what? This is a perfect time of year to do this because it is the new year. And so we are thinking about who we want to be, what we want our lives to look like in 2026. And so let this be the year that you allow yourself to make your home feel just that little bit more supportive for you and your family. So for me, design is such a sensory experience. I think your home should be a really sensory experience. So some of the tips that I'm going to share really tap into that. So the first thing is think about sight and think about what you can see. And there's some really simple things that you can do. Try and declutter a little bit where you can. There is real science that shows that if you declutter, you will feel better. And it will, again, just help to reduce that mental load and free up some of your mental capacity. So get yourself some baskets. I've mentioned them already. Get yourself some pretty baskets that you can have in different corners of your home so that when you need to quickly declutter a space, it takes you 5 minutes to do a quick tidy up. Okay, so that would be the first thing. The second thing is think about lighting, particularly at this moment in the year. We're post Christmas, the days are still short, the nights are still long, so we've got our lights on a lot of the time. Switch your bulbs to warm white. If this is something that you haven't done yet, switch your bulbs to warm white, and that will create such a warm, wonderful, cozy, welcoming atmosphere as opposed to the harsh lighting of the bright white bulbs. So that's from a sight perspective, that's the second thing I would do. And then the third thing to think about when you think about what you can see around you is introduce some natural elements, introduce some natural materials. This can be as simple as a plant, some fresh flowers, or it can even be a wall print with a floral pattern or some drawer liners, with a floral wallpaper, something like that, just to bring a little bit of nature in your house. And keeping that in tune with the seasons is really going to help ground you in time and space as well. So switching out some of those, as you go through the year is another really great thing. So that's sight. Think about everything that you can see. Then try and think about touch. Touch is such an underestimated and overlooked part of a home. But think about your textures. A lot of the time when I go into clients' home, what I see is repeat upon repeat upon repeat of the same textures. Try and mix that up a little bit, whether it's adding a textured throw, whether it's a French cushion. These are some quick and affordable items that you can pick up. Think about what you can touch every day. And maybe, it's the new year, there's still plenty of New Year sales going on. Try and upgrade one item in your home that you touch every single day, be that your bedding, your towels, maybe your favorite mug that you make your morning coffee in. Try and go for something really beautiful, really soft, that's just going to elevate that little moment in your day. And then the final tip is think about smell. Again, we don't often think about smell when we think about interior design, but if you think about the first thing that people notice often when they walk into a space is the smell. So again, open your windows every day, even if it's winter. Just a bit of fresh air, 10 minutes per day is going to make a huge difference. And I also really like this as an opportunity to introduce some seasonal scents. So if you like your candles or if you like your wax melt, swap them around as the seasons change, because again, that's really going to help your body and mind stay in tune with the different seasons. So those are some really small, easy changes that you can implement straight away. It doesn't mean you have to repaint anything. You don't have to buy a new sofa. They're just simple, small changes, but that could have a really good impact on how you feel in your home.
I love that. I know that that will have really whet everyone's appetite for just little bits of change that, as they've now learnt from you, can make a tremendous difference to how either they or guests in their house might feel. Now, you have very kindly offered to take us through a short sensory visualization. Are you happy to do that now?
I would absolutely love to. And I love doing this because sometimes, if someone is struggling to express how they want their home to look, or if they've gone down the Pinterest rabbit hole and they have a board and they've got about 206 pins on there and they are struggling to see the wood for the trees, just close down Pinterest and just join me in this quick visualization, because I think it could really help you to get some clarity about actually what are the things that are really important to you. So, what I'd like to invite you and all of your listeners to do is just to, if you're at home, maybe sit in a comfy spot. If you're out walking, that's fine. If you're out driving, please do not close your eyes, but just center yourself, feel calm, and just imagine yourself in your bedroom. And it is just that moment between sleep and consciousness. You are just waking up, but you haven't fully opened your eyes yet. And I just want you to think, first of all, about what you can feel. What can you feel? What textures are surrounding you? Have you got some really soft bedding? Perhaps you can feel the texture of a waffled pillowcase. Perhaps you've got a warm blanket on top of you and you can feel the weight of that blanket. So just think about what you can feel. And then the next thing I want you to think about is, what can you smell? Are there any smells coming perhaps downstairs from the kitchen? Perhaps it's a Sunday morning, the family is up already, you're allowing yourself an extra little half hour in bed, and you can smell the toast being toasted down in the kitchen, the fresh coffee brewing, or perhaps somebody's brought you a cup of tea and has put it on the bedside table next to you. What can you smell in your surroundings? And then what can you hear? Maybe the window's open, maybe you can hear some of the birds outside, maybe you're just hearing, the happy noise of family or friends at home. Maybe you've got some music playing in the background. What's going on in your environment at that moment in time? And now open your eyes and have a look at what you can see. What can you see from your bed? Can you see the window? Is it dressed with some lovely curtains? What colour can you see on the wall? What have you got on your bedside table? What art is hanging from the walls? And as you roll out of bed and you get up and you put your feet on the ground, what does that look like? Is there a nice plush rug under your feet? Maybe you're walking towards the door, reaching for a comfy dressing gown, putting your slippers on, walking down to the kitchen. Morning light is streaming in. It's making everything glow really gently. And you put the kettle on and you get ready to make that first warm drink of the day. And again, just look around you. What is there? Who is there? What can you see? Is there anything that jumps out at you? And so as you slowly now come back and join our conversation again, what you can do after this little visualization is jot down any of the things that came up for you as you were thinking, imagining. Jot down any colours, any textures, any items, any sounds that came up for you as you were going through the visualization, and start to use those as a starting point for an interior design scheme, for, if you want to switch things up a little bit in a room in the house. Start to use some of the words that you are writing down on the page as a good place to start, rather than going back to your Pinterest board where there are 260 pictures that don't give you any kind of clear direction. And that's why I love this visualization, because often the things that come up for us are the things that are going to make us feel the most good.
Yeah, absolutely. That was really powerful. Really powerful. And I might share with you after the recording what came up for me, just to give a bit of feedback. And we're going to let everyone know at the end of this conversation where they can find you. And maybe people might choose to drop you a line to say what they took away from your visualization as well. Now, before we get to the final 3 questions today, I wanted to share something that was a real mic drop moment for me, and I think could also be a real mic drop moment for any other female business owners out there. It was something you wrote in your notes before today's interview. And it was the one thing that you learnt from working in teams most of your career was that no one will give you a medal for doing it all on your own. Now, I just think that is such a powerful reminder for us all. I think we know it deep down, but it doesn't stop us from just trying to do all the things and be all the things. And, this is why my business is called what it's called. We can't do it all at the same time on our own. It's just not possible. And I just wanted to say that after 2 decades, which makes me feel very old, away from corporate life myself, I really needed to be reminded of that. And I just felt that other people would benefit from hearing it too. So thank you for sharing that. Do you have to keep reminding yourself, or because you're still in corporate, are you surrounded by that team effort all the time? So it is just exactly as you know it. I can't do it all myself. We're a team.
It's ever present in my corporate job, and it is the nature of how we work. I do have to remind myself of this very regularly in my business and in my personal life. But this is something I have become good at over the years, is knowing what I am good at and what I am not good at, and asking for help on the things that I am not good at. My old marketing director, who I worked with many, many years ago, said to me one day, a line that has stayed with me, almost kind of 10 years on. He said to me, fail fast learn, and move on. And so, if something is not working, if you've tried to do something by yourself and it's not working, just don't struggle on for another 6 months. Just admit that that bit is not working, learn from it, and move to the solution. I've done that a lot of times in my life, and that ability to recognize the moment that, okay, this isn't working, I need to pivot, I need to get some help. And it is so true, nobody is going to come and give you a prize if you've done it on your own. So just reaching out for the help and investing in yourself sometimes. And it can feel a bit scary because sometimes it is a financial investment or a big time investment, and that can feel a bit scary. But I can't remember a time where I've regretted doing it.
Brilliant. Such wise words. Thank you so much for sharing that all with us. We're coming to the end of our conversation. I've absolutely loved it, but I do want to find out these last few answers from you. Firstly, what is the toughest thing for you about working for yourself?
I think it is the loneliness at times. Having been so used to working in teams, it is that realization that there isn't always somebody on hand that I can just turn to who is an expert at that particular thing. And they are just on the end of the phone or on the end of live chat. And I can just go, "Oh, I'm stuck with this, so that sometimes the loneliness. Having said that, we are now able to connect with so many different people, and there are so many amazing service providers who are there to help us, who can help us remotely, who can support us with our businesses remotely. So I do try and make the most of that when I can, to remind myself that I am not alone and that the help is there. And also creating the network and the community, that for me has probably been the one of the happiest outcomes that I've had so far from starting a business, is the incredible community of women that I've been able to connect with through networking events, through, meeting other business owners who have then introduced me to other business owners. And that community that has been growing and continues to grow has been one of the happiest surprises I think that I've had from starting a business. So there is the loneliness, but there are so many ways as well that we can stay connected with others.
Such a positive such a positive spin on that. I really love that. And of course, I completely agree as well. If we build that community, that network of supporters and cheerleaders around us, and then we're also supporting and cheerleading them, it's a very, very wholesome, very nurturing and incredibly uplifting experience to be a part of, actually. And we get to choose who those people are as well, which you don't necessarily get in the corporate world. Because I can look back and think, oh, I used to love, being in the office and the vibe and what have you, but you're never guaranteed with those colleagues that they're all going to be your kind of person. Or you can have struggles in corporate life as well. And so I love that actually one of our biggest struggles as business owners, because a lot of people give the same answer to this question, it is isolation, and it can be hard and it can be lonely, but there are solutions out there as well, and they are very much worth exploring.
Yeah,
So,
like the wonderful How Does She Do It community that you've built, Joe,
oh,
which I absolutely love being a part of. So, thank you, because don't underestimate the impact that that has for business owners to have such a community that we can feel a part of, we can reach out to, and we can feel supported by. So it's absolutely wonderful.
thank you for being a part of it. It would not be what it is if we didn't have the wonderful business owners like yourself in the community. Thank you. So, what is the best thing about working for yourself, Caroline?
Gosh, for me, 2025 has been such a journey of personal discovery, personal growth. I have challenged myself more in the last 12 months than I have in the last 8 years, and there has been so much growth, so much learning as well. And I love the fact that I get to do something that makes me feel really fizzy inside. And it is such a privilege to be able to do that. And I am grateful for it every single day. I really am.
I've loved your word fizzy today. It's just such a bubbly, happy word, and I'm going to have to start using it. Thank you for the inspiration. I love how positive this journey you're on has been for you, and it's wonderful to literally, I get to see you glowing from it, but I don't doubt that my listeners can actually feel that glow through the energy and the vibes that you're sharing audibly as well today. So, as you know, the name of my business is How Does She Do It? Because I believe that she doesn't do it all. Can you tell me one thing that you either do or maybe don't do anymore to ensure that you remain on track, healthy, and happy in life?
I have worked very hard in the last 12 months at being less of a people pleaser and saying no to more things. I've said yes to a lot more things, but that has meant having to say no to a lot more things. Now, sometimes I find that advice of just say no quite frustrating because it's very easy to say, but it's quite hard to do. But one of the things that allows me to say no with confidence is that I am absolutely 100% clear on what my priorities are. And I often, think of life, if you think of all the aspects of your life as a bit of a solar system, you need to know what your sun is. What is your sun? What is at the center of your solar system? And once you know that, it is easier to make everything else orbit around it. And for me, my solar system is, my husband and my son SON, not SUN. Our little family unit, that is the center of my solar system. And so every yes that I give and every no that I give, I make with that in mind, with that priority in mind. And over the years, it's allowed me to make, easy or tough career decisions, easy or tough personal choices, easy or tough family choices. But a lot of the time, I put everything through that lens, and having that absolute clarity makes it easier to say no because I know the reason why I'm saying no or I'm saying yes. So I hope that can be helpful as well to others when they hear that advice of, well, just say no more. Well, how do I define, what's a yes and what's a no? And so, yes, having that clarity of what's at the center of your solar system is something that's helped me a lot over the years.
Such a brilliant analogy and fabulous lens to view life in general by. That's wonderful, and I don't doubt that people will be taking that one on board and really, really considering what their son is as well. That's fabulous. Thank you. Now, before we end, I think it's very important that you share with us, and I'll add this to the show notes as well. Where can people come and track you down?
Absolutely. Well, the best two places to find me are, first of all, my website, so edenlaneinteriors.com. And on there, you can see not just examples of my work, but also you can find out more about my services. You can find out a little bit more about my story. So go and have a look at the website. And then you can also find me on Instagram. And my handle is Eden Lane Interiors. And again, on there, I share lots of tips, lots of advice. And yeah, I'd love to see you there.
Fabulous. Well, I have absolutely adored our time together today. I have learnt so much, and I'm so glad to have been able to allow you the opportunity to share so much with my listeners as well. I really hope you've enjoyed it.
I've absolutely loved it. It was my first time being a guest on a podcast. And to be honest, I'm so glad it was with you because you also have such a calming presence. And I think you have such a gentle way about you in everything that you do, you know, how you manage your community. If anyone has come to one of your networking events, they will know what a warm and welcoming space they are. And how supported you will feel as a business owner in those networking events. So I am absolutely thrilled to have done my first podcast appearance with you, Jo. Thank you so much. And thank you for making it such an easy and effortless experience for me. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for listening today. I really hope you enjoyed the episode. If you did, I'd love you to take a moment to share and subscribe too. Come and join me over at How Does She Do It Life on both Facebook and Instagram. And until we speak again, I wish you a wonderful week ahead.